All right, we're back. Basketball 20. It's the fun time of year. We're getting back to school. Got that taken care of, and now, sure enough, we're gonna have NFL football coming. It's right around the corner. I know I'm excited. I know you're excited. Seems to be the buzz is people want to start talking about how their teams compare. And Las Vegas does a good job at putting out a season over under to place a value before the season starts. There's been a lot of buzz and talk about that. So, Jack, how do you take a look? What do you use for analysis when you're trying to decide, geez, is this value where it should be, or is it maybe just off a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean the idea is that, if you listen to like mainstream, 4-letter networks and media, you get, all this hype and who's this Super Bowl team and who's not, like I hate when they go into these contenders, pretenders, and then so you might have a team like, oh, Green Bay's not a contender, but then they might say Philly is, and then it's like, well, reality is there's no distinct line of say demarcation or distinct cutoff of these. I hate when people talk about tiers, tier 1, tier 2. The reality is they're all a lot closer than we think. And so what I always try to be grounded. I try to ground myself because I'm a fan, I'm a fan, but so I always want to check myself against the Vegas point spreads, because I know it's like a opinion of everybody mixed in, smart people and dumb people. And so I try to look at that. But here, I'll share my screen here.
Sure. So we're looking at the NFC North. You mentioned the Green Bay Packers, kind of a good example from last year being a 13-win team. I think Vegas had them down to about 9 over under or something, somewhere right around there. And then, as a typical fan, you'd be like, geez, we won 13 last year, so I don't see how we're not going to win more than 9. That would be ridiculous, right? So what are some of the things that you're going to be showing us here?
Well, so that's where like you say, my jumping off point would be what's Vegas say, and so right now, I'll refresh this, and this is just one website, but there's so many of these websites. They come together because there's people out there are using the other websites to lay money back and forth, and one thing I'll say is you're getting, and I can show this later at some point in time, but you're getting no good deals on these bets. All right, there's too much of a spread. So I don't think it makes any kind of sense to like put your money on these over unders unless it's just totally for fun. You're like trying to make a point. But so for Green Bay, it's an over under of 9. But what you need to go look at is that if you bet the over, they're going to give you 130 to 100 odds. And if you want to bet the under, they're going to make you pay 160. So you got to pay 60% more juice or more if you lose than if you win. So that's considerably under 9. So we're talking about Green Bay, and everyone, like you were saying, oh, geez, they won 13 last year. That's ridiculous. Well, it's not, because I'll take you over to where I have them, and I have I have my model, and there's a lot of numbers on here. So we're just going to go to this main number that I have in yellow. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's a little small, but if you can zoom in real quick, that'd be great.
Absolutely. All right. So if I go in yellow there, and sorry for this, I'll hide these rows so the names are right next to them. And I got Green Bay highlighted because, I love to hate them. But anyway, this number is just where we left off last year. It's a regression. It's there's a lot of things involved. I use DVOA. I'll use 538's model. I'll use Jeff Sagarin's model. I'll use some of my own total points, different ways to look at it. It just blends it out, and it puts Green Bay at 8.6. All right, so that's kind of where we're at with Green Bay, and so now if I had 8.6 and then Vegas was telling me 11, I'd be like, okay, what am I missing? First, that'd be my first instinct, is like, what am I missing? Are there just a bunch of idiots betting money that it's causing it to be different, or but for me, it makes perfect sense. So I don't really need to go much further. It's like if the numbers that I'm looking at match up with what Vegas is looking at, I would say it's pretty accurate. And I'd say if you're a Green Bay fan, get ready for a mediocre team, and hope that you get lucky. So in order, I would say to get lucky would be stay really healthy, have good timing in your schedule. Maybe other teams have big injuries to their quarterbacks when you play them, or win a big turnover ratio, which is more luck than not, or win a lot of close games. And that's what happened last year. That's why they regressed to such a low number. Is they went 6-0 in the NFC North last year, and they had all 6 games were by 1 score. So it's like, how good were they? And then a lot of, for me, I didn't think they were that good. And when I watched them play in the playoffs, I watched them barely skate at home in the first round and get demolished in the second round. So nothing about the Packers leads me to believe that that we shouldn't be looking at like a 9-win team, 8-win team versus, the 13-win team. They're going to take the next step forward, So I don't want to get too in detail with opinions, but it's like, even if I go to, I set up a model over here, and it's, can you see this? This is pretty hard to run, but I run a simulator, and the long and the short of it is it uses, I can either input a number, for everybody that's off a certain scale, and I can use Sagarin ratings. They have like a predictor model, and then simulate the season like 100,000 times and to see what that number comes out to. And I've got the Packers here, and this is like an adjusted rating, and I've got it where it matches up pretty well with a lot of the models. So I'll just run it and read the number to you. But the idea here is, and I don't have this in a GUI format. I run it 100,000 times, and they average 8.68, wins. And so that's right in line with my model. That's right in line with Vegas. So, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, hey, I'm going to pit, like we talk about these over-unders, and everyone, I know if people look at this and say, we're going to go over the over-unders in Vegas, that we're going to make like these predictions. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to go, oh, I was right, I was wrong. It's like, I'm really just trying to get an honest expectation of the future. And if you, as a gambler or a fan, if you want to tell me you think Rodgers is going to make this huge improvement, if you want to tell me that Rashawn Gary is so good in training camp that we're better, okay, like if you want to make those predictions, then they will be better than 8.6 if they're not unlucky, if they're just normal luck, or if they get lucky, they could win 11 games. Like there's so much variance among these teams that making a prediction, even if you're right, I don't know how to credit you for that. I don't know to credit you if you were lucky, or credit you if you were unlucky. So I'd rather just try to make a reasonable assessment of where value is based on how models transfer from year to year and what Vegas is doing. And then obviously if you sign a bunch of superstars, we'll bump you up. And we won't do that much, but it's like a team like Tampa, and we'll get to those later. We'll do some of those shows and have some more. And when we get to the Lions, we might have something a little different too.
Yeah, you certainly can have a good team that pumps out a bad record, and vice versa. I mean, it's the NFL. A lot could go into it. You speak a lot about luck and injuries go into that category, and you just don't know which way the ball is going to bounce. But the on the model there that you're running, it's kind of hard to see. It's a little small, but can you explain? So you have like each team that Green Bay is going to play and assess them a value. Is that how that works?
Right. So like when I got these over under totals here where I showed you, right? And that's like a regression. It looks at Vegas a little bit, looks at DVOA from last year. And then, I plugged that into kind of a composite formula, and I came up with, this is where I currently have teams rated. And
Okay.
And so I use this as what I call adjusted, and I might make some adjustment based on point spreads. I might make some adjustment based on roster changes, but I try to make as little of adjustments possible. But in this one, and I think this is mostly accurate, it's like where it came out to from last year and going into this year, and these do line up pretty well with the spreads. So I put these numbers in, and in the simulator, all these values are in for these teams over here.
Okay.
And then it goes through, and there's a random number generator, and it creates a score for each game, and then it adds a win or a loss for each team for each week, and it plays out the 16 team season, and I have it on a loop for 100,000 times. So it comes out to 100,000 games, and then at the end, I just have it return the average wins, and it came out to eight. When I use these numbers over here, it came out to 8.68, and when I go compare it to my season number, I had Green Bay at 8.621. So it's like, for me, that just it adds up. It's like multiple models are coming together, saying kind of the same thing. Vegas is saying the same thing. I'm saying the same thing with my number. And then when I actually play the season out based on these values for all the teams on the schedule, it still comes out at that 8.62 number.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's so in depth. I can't believe you created this. Well, I can believe it, but no, it's a wonderful tool. Why don't we go through and run down Detroit and see what the values come out for them?
Okay, so if I use, I've got two ones for Detroit here because I was working on them. So if I use I'm looking for the Lions adjusted. Here it is. So these will be the same numbers, pretty much the same numbers I used for Green Bay. But I feel like there was a little bit of difference in there. But if I run that,
Did you make an adjustment with Stafford being back, or is that already calculated in? Something like that be already calculated in?
well, no, see, it's not calculated in some of the models, but it is in some of the other models. So like at this time of season, I had, but yes, and the long answer is now it's got to be long. It is yes, I used some adjustments in there. That's why I labeled this adjustments. I didn't just go straight from like a regression from last year's stats because Stafford didn't play the last 8 games. And when I run that for Detroit, I get a 7. They average winning 7 games. If I go to my number here, I got 6.8, and that was using, I think, a 21 in that adjusted thing. So, I had Detroit at a 19.5, and the reason I bumped them up because like wins above replacement and all this stuff, it's kind of a best guess on, okay, what's Stafford worth according to David Blau, and one good way to kind of reverse engineer that number is if I go look at, well, first of all, if I go look at Detroit and Vegas, they're 6.5, but they're like a minus 170 to the upside. So it's over 6.5. It's well over 6.5. So if you want to bet the under, they give you plus 140. Again, they ain't giving out any deals. All right. So if they would give you plus 140, minus 140, well, then you could maybe figure it out. But when it's plus 140, minus 170, they're taking a huge edge, and you're a fool if you make bets on this stuff. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Vegas. They look at the big bright lights. I mean, they didn't just.
Yeah, and the other thing is just quickly for people, and I'm talking about over-unders, and if people are trying to like use this information to make bets, I'm still going to tell you don't bet, because if you're going to make these bets, like I said, if it's for fun and you want to throw $10 away, throw $10 away. But the you make these bets, they take your money and they hold it all year. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? So it's like, I know that they have to do it for like, so people don't just make a bunch of big bets and run away, but like they're financing their whole operation with all everybody's preseason, they make all these different lines out there knowing that, people are just gonna, if they're on these websites, they're just going to be degenerates and throw money in there. But then they hold your money all season. And quite frankly, what is this? BetOnline.ag. I don't have an account here, obviously, but come January, there might be a headline. BetOnline.ag is no longer a thing. Like now what? I don't mean to get start throwing stones at people, but exit scams are things that happen every day. So, but when I ran this one, I put in a little loop for if you bet on the over, if you bet on the under, right? So I plugged in the exact odds they have on this website of 170 and 140, which are terrible odds. And then I run it, and what it tells you in 100,000 bets, on the over, you lost 4% per bet, and on the under, you lost 7%, 7.5% per bet. So that's my point. Like,
sounds like a lose-lose.
It's a lose-lose if there are 7. Now, if you can sit here and confidently say, no, Detroit, they're an 8-win team, right? So I don't know. Let's give them an extra 2 points and see, per game. So I just changed their 23, their 21 to a 23. I'll save it. I'll run it. And if you can't see this, I'll read the numbers, but people could zoom in and check it. Now, giving them an extra 2 points a game, it bumps them up to an 8.34. And now you're making 54%, 53.5% on your over bets. Okay. And you're getting killed on your unders, obviously. So if you can look yourself in the mirror, as you got to be a Lions fan to do this, but if you think you can convince yourself that the Lions are expectation of 8.3 wins, well, then you're getting great value on the over bet, and maybe you're willing to let BetOnline.ag hold your money for 6 months or 5 months and hope they're still there to pay you back when you win. But again, I know that people use this stuff, and I'm thankful because then I get a lot of information on the pulse of the whole, football fan base, and gambling fan base. But for the most part, it's a pretty bad deal. It's like, here's what I'll say: if you're a Lions fan, just go bet on them Sunday. If you think, what I mean, like if you just bet on them every week, you get your money. But that's a much safer way to give your money away slowly.
Right.
Is
entire season, just week by week.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Lions are favored by 3 over the Bears, and that's why I tried to make some of these adjustments too. Is like if I go into some of these things, like if I use Sagarin's ratings, Jeff Sagarin, he does a USA Today. I see that Detroit's, a point worse than the Bears, and early on that was the case that the Lions were like a 1.5 point favorite at home. So with home field advantage, that implies the Bears were actually a little better than the Lions. And then just in the last week, this is funny, just in the last week, that line jumped all the way to 3, like a couple days ago. And what I'll say about that is, my opinion, is that someone found out they were starting Mitch Trubisky, and they know that people had a higher opinion of Nick Foles than Trubisky. And so that line going more in favor of the Lions is the community saying that they think Mitch Trubisky is really bad. And so they're now bringing the Lions or the Bears down to the Lions expectation, and the only thing that changed is the quarterback, so it's like, we'll see. I mean, because I had, before adjustments, I had the Bears like three and a half points better than the Lions. But then again, we adjust for Stafford up, and then we adjust down for Trubisky because, well, I don't know what we adjust down. It's just, he's bad, and they were bad last year, or they were average-ish last year. But I had the Bears at 7.8, and I had the Lions at 6.8, and now Vegas has them even. So you got to kind of piece what people are thinking there.
Right on. Yeah, that leads us into the Bears. Yeah, let's run the simulator on the Bears 100,000 times and see what comes up.
Okay. Recent. I'll go to the Bears. I'll go to the Bears. This is an adjusted version of my numbers, the same one that we ran to get the Packers an 8.6. It got the Lions as like a 7. I'm going to adjust it a little bit more to make the Detroit and the Bears more even. And I'll run it. And I got the Bears at a 7.57. And like I said, I had them on this model of a 7.895. And Vegas, we'll go to, like I said, Vegas has them 3 points with the, this is a weekly thing. If we go to the season over under the Bears, they started off at 8.5. All right. So I think people were a little more optimistic maybe than they should be. But again, this number has changed too, in that the Bears have pretty much plummeted to where now if you want to take the Bears under 8.5, you got to give 2-to-1 odds. They're minus 200. So substantial. I think when I ran this before, I had them at, I just did the over, and it was plus 145. Now it's gone to plus 160, which would help a little bit, but either way, it's anyway, they're far below, right? Like far below that 8.5, and this is generally a sign. And I'll tell you what if I was a Bears fan, I'd be even more upset, concerned, because classically, I would say the Bears are one of the most active Vegas teams. Like, people go to Vegas, Bears fans are rah the Bears type. They made a Saturday Night Live skit about how kind of meatheaded the Bears fans are. So I think, generally speaking, you're not going to get good value betting on the Bears. So if Vegas is moving against the Bears, that means they're probably moving against all the just fan bets that these Bears fans make every year. Like last year, Mitch Trubisky was the number one ticket for number of tickets for MVP. Now, his odds he wasn't the odds-on favorite, but more people bet on Mitch Trubisky for MVP than any other player in the NFL. And after this year, the Bears did not even pick up his fifth-year option as a quarterback for the number 2. I mean, it's that doesn't happen very often. You got to be pretty bad. And so that's how bad Mitch Trubisky was. I mean, we could go to, Football Outsiders and look up, quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's that classic public money, fan money.
Yeah.
See that coming in on the Bears typically almost all the time, and then
Right.
you'll see the number adjust the opposite way, and it's like there's some smart people out there. You call them, the smart money, if you will, obviously pounding the under in this scenario.
Right. I would say the more unbiased, quote, smarter money is pushing these lines, even in spite of, because Vegas set the Bears at a high number. Like I said, I said 7.895. And so that to me is kind of a fair model number of all these different models. So that's kind of where you're going to open up with Vegas without any major changes. Well, Vegas opened up at 8.5. But that's kind of, I think, that's kind of them anticipating the Bear money. So it's like, hey, these Bear fans are always betting their guys, so we're going to juice that number up to 8.5. But I think Vegas underestimated, how much overall people don't believe in the Bears. And like I said, here we are starting week 1, and the Bears are the same as the Lions. -3 at Detroit implies the two teams are pretty even.
Right. Okay, well, let's get into let's try the Minnesota Vikings, see what they come out at over 100,000 seasons. We'll get some value for them.
Right. So I'm gonna do the Sagarin ratings because those are completely unbiased. This isn't. I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm going to try to use less of these adjustments that I make based on things, but because there is, oh, they lost Diggs, but then now everybody's up, excited they picked up Yannick Ngakoue, and there's different reasons to what you can make your case as a fan. You can point out all these little positives that because you're a fan, and try to overlook all the negatives. That's what Peter Bukowski does for the Packers on his podcast. Is like, yeah, we can sit here and pick out all these reasons why they'll be better than expectation, but with the Vikings, I want to try to keep it unbiased. So by using this Sagarin rating, where all these numbers I'm using for the games are just derived from his predictor model going into the season, I'll run that and read you the numbers here on the Vikings. 9.18. And so it's like, oh yeah, shocker, you're a Vikings fan and you're picking. Well, that's just what the numbers say. That's just what the models say from Sagarin. This is from Jeff Sagarin, USA Today. I just use his numbers and playing out their schedule. And still, there's no value on that betting line because they're both losers. So you're betting the over, you're betting the under, and so we'll go see this. And so for the Vikings, it's 9, just like the Packers, but it's more lean towards the over. It's negative towards both. Whereas the Packers, they'll give you odds if you want to bet the over plus 130, but the Vikings, you got to give minus 105. So you got to give 2.5% on the total bets. And what I'll say is also is that another way to look at this is where's the team wins? There's a playoff final standings. Okay. So NFC North final standings. So the Vikings to finish first plus 160, Packers plus 175. So the Vikings are the favorite on this. And then if you look at the Lions to finish last, 175. Bears to finish last, 180. So slightly puts the Bears more likely to finish last than the Lions. Although I will say that and that again is with, I think the Bears are a much more popular public team than the Lions. I think that the value, players out there have the Bears picked 4th, and they have the Vikings picked 1st, and it's really close between the Vikings and Packers, and really close between the Lions and the Bears, but it's not close between the two sets of pairs. And I think, and we'll go one more time to my sheet, right? So I only have the Vikings at 8.84 and on this model, so it's not. And then I have them from, last year and then regressed, and they're current. I have them at a 25.4. So I am as a slight favorite over Green Bay. So it all adds up, It's like my stuff adds up with Vegas, and so that's to me the reality is if you're looking at over-unders, the Vikings look like a 9-win team. The Bears or the Packers are close to that, and the Lions and the Bears both look like 7-win teams. And then, with some injuries and some luck, you could easily see that thing flip over. You could see the not easily, it's not likely, but you could see the Bears win the division, the Lions come in 2nd, the Packers come in 3rd, and the Vikings finish 4th. And all it takes is a Kirk Cousins injury, and boom, you're going to drop 2.5 games off that Vikings number, and now you're the worst team in the division.
Yeah. You know, the NFL, it's fun to watch that way. Fantastic simulator. I like the work you've done there. You also, I believe, have one where we can do a week-by-week analysis on against the point spread. Is that correct? Where we were punching in some against the spread.
Yeah, it's like an implied. I don't have anything with the. Let's see. Sorry.
Well, I was just thinking for next episode.
Yeah, we can do some stuff with the point spreads before next Sunday. You know,
Yeah.
we'll do a week. I've got one that does it does kind of a percent chance of win implication on the point spread. So like if you're, and it plays out the season based on that percentage only instead of using analytics from USA Today or myself.
Yeah, absolutely. This would be fun to take a look at it. Be sure to tune in and watch our numbers each week as NFL season kicks off very shortly. And Jack, thanks a lot for sharing all this information with us and nice work on the spreadsheet there. If you want to get a hold of Jack, you can just reach out to him at Jack Viking on Twitter, Jack Newman. You can reach me on Twitter at First Gator over there, or you can just feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to get notified when our next episode comes out right down below here. We just want to thank you for tuning in to Jack of All Trades, and be sure to tune in next time. Thank you.